hot today. It is hot today. It's like going to be 35 degrees with the index today. Oh, what's going on here? We in? It's only first coffee. Are we in? Yep, looks good. Oh, where the hell was I? Rain. It's always raining in this one. Okay, let's get the night over with. Day 33. Alright, I thought it was day 33. Day 34. Okay. I think I'm waking up, so let's go, get some iron. Okay, we'll see how much iron we got. I can't remember where we were. We should, let me think here. Alright, so I did empty that because before the end we could start the day off getting some diamonds, I guess. Get some proper diamond armor, and then we can, iron armor. I think maybe we'll go check out that. I don't want to do that. We have to go do something. Shit. coffee. I guess today we'll do get the mob farm started. I need to get the mob farm started, and I need a whole crap load of villagers to get my trading hall built. Stone tools used up. I'll go to iron. Oh, there we go. Oh. I wonder if that's the same one. Well, why not? Let's go check it out. I haven't known these in forever. Okay, they do work pretty fast. Oh, these things always freak me out. I don't know, I've been playing this game for long and these things still freak me out. They're spooky. They are spooky. Alright, plop. And plop. Okay. Oh, see, I'm already expecting to get blown up by a creeper. Let's mark. There we go. That's going down. Oh, my chopper. spider. Yes, keys. Wonder if it'll be a grinder or a mob spawner, spider spawner. Alright. Hmm. Oh, cobwebs are a string. Interesting. Why did I think it was the same thing? But I guess you turn cobwebs into string? I haven't messed with that in a long time. Huh, let's see. I guess. No, that's not even going to work, is it? Is that it? I guess it is. Okay. Well, I guess I gotta go unload. Wasn't really expecting. Yeah, that's just rough down. Alright. Oh, yeah. What the fuck happened? Whoa. That was OG. Huh. Oh, we gotta get some steak. So let's go get another shade. 20. Let's say 20-ish. Let's go find another 20-ish diamonds. Then that part of the day can be over. Then that part of the day can be over. guess that'll be a goal for this hardcore world. Sometime in the near future, we'll go to the end and check it out. Yeah, I've never done it. Never had in a lifetime a huge celebration. Oh, lucky. Okay. And the reason I make it 3x2 at first is if I bring horses down here. Sometimes I bring horses down deep before I get rails built. So they have to be tall enough and wide enough for my horses. This seat is not a lot of diamonds. It doesn't seem to be. What do we got here? I'm at minus 50. So I think I'll go to 120 blocks from center in every direction. I think that's what we'll do for the main tunnels to start. Yeah, 128 in all directions. What's that? Guess not. I guess the glare is gone. I can open up my curtains and see what's going on in the world. Oh, there's a bit of a glare, but it's not too bad. What is it anyway? 9. Okay, I got a good 3 hours to kill, then I gotta get ready for work. Back to work. Hopefully just a couple more years in town, and the wife and I'll move back out to the woods. I like it in the woods. You know why? Not a lot of people in the woods. Oh, give me some diamonds. Come on. What's up there? Cool. Nope. There all day doing that. Oh man, I've got to get some efficiency. Woo! That could have hurt. portable. Now, I saw something pretty up there. So let's go get the pretties. They are pretty. I have to say, this seed is pretty impressive, except for the lack of diamonds, which is hardly a rarity. This is a neat seed so far. tons of shards now. Oh, that's just too cool. Ooh. 1, 2, 3. Actually, we're close to where we were going to stop, too. Alright. Ah. Oh, what am I doing? Fucking bad. One, two. That's what you get. That's what you get. some more coffee. Want more coffee? Yeah, that'd be good. Pastrami, yeah. No, pastrami would be good. Sounds yummy. Okay. Oh, where were we? Digging tunnels. Oh, you know, I'm gonna put the earphones on so I can listen to something in the background as well.
Well, the walls may be closing in on Minnesota Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. She faces allegations of steering taxpayer money toward fraudulent schemes in her state. Boy, that state's a mess. Great people, though. House Oversight Committee Chair James Comer detailing the next steps of the investigation.
And I do think Ilhan Omar is in a lot of trouble. She's got that big question mark on how her net worth jumped up to, at least 6 million and then went back down to zero over a 1-year period.
So are you saying that Ilhan Omar, the congresswoman from Minnesota, that she was getting federal money and feeding it into these corrupt Somali networks, her cronies?
I think one of the projects she requested proved to be a fraudulent Somali scheme.
Now, we have reached out to Congresswoman Omar's team for comment. We've yet to hear back. We'll let you know if that changes. Meanwhile, a former state employee who was placed on administrative leave is now accusing the Walz administration of ignoring fraud and intimidating whistleblowers. Watch this.
The smear campaign starts where you are told that you are racist, and then your job duties are lessened and lessened until you basically have no job duties. There is just a continuous effort to stifle you, to shut you up. And it is impossible to overcome. So to say that leadership was not aware, or the governor was not aware, I can tell you that is absolutely false.
I tell you, that is legally deadly, Kaylee.
Yeah.
You know, I mentioned the good people of Minnesota. People deserve better representation than those who will defraud them.
Yes, and for anyone to say, oh, that's a Republican activist. No, Faye Bernstein, the whistleblower, is a Democrat. And she saw this, and she had a problem with it, because anyone should have a problem with taxpayer money going to fraudsters. And she has been bold and stood up and has repeatedly said the governor knew about this. How could he not? We have reports. I believe they're Inspector General reports, or at least government documents going back to before he came to office. I'm looking at data from 2015, 35 child care facilities flagged, 2016, 41, 2017, 42 flagged. He comes into office at the beginning of 2019, Governor Walz. There's been ample warning at this point from whistleblowers, from government agencies. And what does he do? He shuts down the government agency that Jay Swanson is working at and doesn't take this seriously until a young 24, 25-year-old Nick Shirley comes in with a camera. Thank God for Nick Shirley bringing attention to this, and now there needs to be accountability.
Joe?
Amazing about Nick Shirley, right? All the resources of CBS and ABC and all these networks, and one guy with one camera just completely blows this thing open.
Well, he's not doing it for money.
No, he's not.
he's not sticking to a budget and doing all these sideline things. He's got one goal.
Yeah.
Go find the truth.
And when you only have a one-person crew, the budget's basically Arby's, right? And maybe Waffle House, and you're good to go.
I'll take it.
Yeah, I'll take that too. A pleasant reminder, by the way, that Tim Walz was a couple of swing states away from being a heartbeat away from the presidency, jazz hands. Could you imagine him running the country? That would be utterly remarkable to me. And I just wonder, you know, when you look at Ilhan Omar and you look at Nancy Pelosi and you look at all these people in Congress that come into this job, in Ilhan Omar's case, she was in debt. And then she was suddenly worth $6 million. And then that's gone away again. And people see Nancy Pelosi making hundreds of millions of dollars in the stock market. No one likes this. Republican, Democrat, doesn't matter. I just wonder, we always hear about, you know, we're really close to this person getting prosecuted. This person's going to get away to jail, and it never happens, right? So my eyes glaze over a little bit when I hear that there's going to be prosecutions. Let me see someone once be held accountable, truly, because it doesn't seem like it happens very often.
Well, and Emily, I'd have to think to get to this point, there have been a lot of hands that have been greased, so they probably have some favors they can call in.
Well, I will say that, you know, I think in the timeline that we are used to in the world of media and 2026 of constant information and updates and the like, we might expect results sort of soon. But the wheels of justice do turn. And the good men and women at the FBI and the DOJ and the like are methodically and very specifically uncovering and tracing so much of forensic accounting. And remember, you know, the negligence standard, by the way, is knew or should have known. So it's preposterous that we continue hearing from whistleblowers of both sides of the aisle that say it's not just should have known. He absolutely knew. There is now incontrovertible evidence that this individual knew about it and yet let it happen. And I think that we will absolutely see criminal charges. I think there's also a ton of civil suits to be had. I think nonprofits have an absolute standing to sue. And there's zero, by the way, shelter from office duties that were outside of your actual position, meaning the governor and his cronies are not shielded from liability because this isn't the normal course of their duties. Fraud is not normal course. Fraud is misconduct. Looking the other way while your state racks up billions in dollars of fraudulent money that should have gone to needy families or children with nutrition funds and so much, and instead went to Somaliland and terrorists or cronies' fat pockets. I mean, there's a whole host, I think, of charges that we are going to see. So we just have to remain patient, because the longer that they take, obviously within reason, it will ensure that those building blocks are solid, because at the end of the day, we do want to see accountability. We don't want to see these chips fall.
So many victims, and you mentioned some of them, the autism fraud in that state as well. Canada.
Yeah, I mean, it's like kids shouldn't go hungry in this country. They absolutely should not. And, you know, for the wonderful people who are doing God's work, who are trying to feed them and clothe them and make sure that they are not deficient in the very basics of life so they can go to school and learn, those people are completely hosed out of their work as well because of this massive grift. And it was really the perfect combination of a governor who wanted to spend a bunch of money but didn't want to overtax his citizens, because Minnesota was just deemed in one survey as the happiest state in the country. So he wants people to maintain their happiness, but if you jack up their taxes, they're going to be quite miserable. But then you get the federal fire hose, you get a bunch of money coming in from Medicare funding, and then on top of that, you know, sure, you have some communities who are taking a little bit here and there, but they're really helping people, aren't they? And if they're not, at least the entire community is voting for you and keeping you in power. So for him, like, what a scheme that was. But then they pulled back the curtain. We got to see exactly who was operating the levers and what was going on. But I'm with Joe. I want to see some specifics, and I want to see that meticulous work really bear fruit with some people at the top who need to pay with more than their political reputations.
Yeah, that's why it's actually really good that this president has taken it as a top-down approach, right? Mm-hmm. It's good to have even outside FBI. I know every state has their own offices, but the DOJ part of this too, Emily. I don't know what accountability will look like or how deep it will go, but I agree with you. Criminal charges feel fair.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they did prosecute 2 state employees last week, the 32-count indictment. We're seeing it, and they said, look, we're willing to go after state employees because that's how you stop this. It's not whack-a-mole with the fraudsters.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube, and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.
Immediately after Carmelo Anthony was convicted of murder for savagely stabbing 17-year-old Austin Metcalf through the heart at a track meet, he broke down in tears and began sobbing uncontrollably. He had been out on bail for the duration of the trial thanks to a favor from an activist black judge, and now he was faced with the reality that he'd be going to prison for a very long time. Anthony was so distraught that his lawyer pleaded with the judge to allow him to take Carmelo somewhere to pull himself together. But the judge, a Marine veteran named John Roach, denied the request. The judge informed Anthony that he was now in the custody of the government. And then the judge said simply, things move differently now. It was obviously a difficult statement for Anthony, his family, and his supporters to accept, but it's true. Things do move differently now. And they aren't just moving differently for Carmelo Anthony. After decades of coddling terrorists, degenerates, and black supremacists, the people of the Western world are tired of it. We've simply had enough. We're tired of the intimidation, the violence, the fraudulent narratives, the manipulation, the censorship. We're done with pretending that the police are racist as a way to excuse black violence. We're done with pretending that asylum claims are real and that the Great Replacement is not. It's hard to pinpoint exactly when this transformation was complete. It was sometime in between the slaughter of a white teenager at a track meet and the near beheading of a white man in Northern Ireland. But there's no denying that things are indeed moving differently now. Carmelo Anthony is in prison, Northern Ireland is on fire, and white men are finally stepping up. There will be no more excuses. The new civil rights movement, a civil rights movement that protects the civil rights of all people to live in peace without the threat of violence following them everywhere they go, has begun. And unlike the old civil rights movement, we're not trying to discriminate against anybody on the basis of race. We want to remove from society anyone of any race who would make the Western world uninhabitable. And if the people we remove from society happen to belong disproportionately to one demographic group or another, well, that's just how it goes. Things move differently now. Just as Anthony struggled to accept this new reality, all of his supporters seemed gobsmacked by the guilty verdict. They truly were not expecting this outcome, and to be honest, from where I'm sitting, I don't understand what they're so upset about. Carmelo Anthony's parents famously wanted their son to live in a gated community, and now he will. So it all worked out for them in the end, you might say. But for some reason, outside the courthouse, the mood was less than enthusiastic among Anthony's biggest fans. They seemed genuinely furious and also more than a little bit confused. Watch.
What do you want us to do? What do you want us to do at this point? What? I'm lost for words. I don't know what to do. I got 5 boys. I don't know what. I ain't got nothing to tell them no more. You can't walk away no more.
Rest in peace, Trayvon Martin.
What do you want us to do? She asks. She's totally perplexed. The black guy is going to jail for murdering somebody, and now she has no idea what she's supposed to do. And, you know, I've reflected on this question, and admittedly, this is a very far out idea, and it's never been tried before, so I would completely understand if this woman rejects my suggestion. But after a lot of careful consideration and meditation, I have one idea for what you could do going forward if you don't want to end up in prison for 35 years. You could not murder people. That's one thing you could do. Now, I know it sounds totally ridiculous, implausible, but hear me out. If you don't stab innocent people through the heart for no reason, you'll be fine. You can do like 10 million other things. You could pick up a hobby. You could learn a new language, plant a garden, go for a jog. There's a nearly infinite list of things you can do with your day, especially in your case, because you presumably don't have a job and are on welfare. Your days are wide open to do just about anything you want. Just don't kill anyone or commit any other crimes. Aside from that, the world is your oyster. But this woman clearly thinks that that's impossible, along with everyone around her. Then the guy to her left who randomly says, rest in peace, Trayvon Martin, which, you know, could mean a couple of things. Either he has Tourette's and simply has no other choice but to vomit out random words, or he believes that black people should have the right to pummel white people on the pavement in addition to stabbing them. So it's hard to say, but either way, there's a certain morbid appeal in seeing these people outside the courthouse throwing up their hands and declaring, well, if I can't stab anyone to death, then I don't know what you want me to do with my time. Can't stab anyone, can't shoot anyone. What? I'm out of ideas. But as confusing as these comments were, somehow the paid professional commentators over at Court TV were not any more coherent. In fact, they had a full-on meltdown after the guilty verdict was announced. This has to be one of the top 10 all-time television meltdowns ever captured on camera. It's really quite something. Watch.
I mean, I'm questioning the jury. I'm asking them, how did you reach your verdict? How did you reach it so quickly? What happened? He had a 4-inch knife. He used it one time. He was pushed. I'm not saying that it was right, but what are you doing? How did you get this verdict? I'd want to know. My whole identity as a defense attorney would be in question. Right now, I'm questioning my identity right now, and I have nothing to do with this case. How could you come back like that? I would be enraged. I'm enraged right now. This is very upsetting. And then on top of it, to compound it, this dumb judge didn't allow cameras in the courtroom. What was your wisdom? What were you thinking? How you put on a robe? Are you that much of an imbecile that you won't let cameras in the courtroom in a case like this? This is not a rape case. This is something different. This is something that's clearly the whole community is enraged, and you knew that before the trial started. So I mean, this is very upsetting.
Yeah, you only stabbed Austin Metcalf one time. What's the big deal? I mean, everybody knows the first stab is free. No charges apply if you manage to puncture the sternum and obliterate the heart wall in just one stab. But if you need 2 or 3 stabs to finish the job, well then, according to the esteemed legal experts at Court TV, then you might be in some trouble. And then the analyst says randomly that he's questioning his identity, which honestly seems like too much information for a Court TV segment. I don't know if he's announcing that he's trans or what, but it would help explain why he's so, you know, enraged and unstable. Apparently this guy's name is Michael Jafar. He obviously shouldn't be allowed on television ever again, if you can count being on Court TV as being on television. He made all 7 viewers in the audience, who presumably were only watching because it was on TV in a dentist waiting room or something, much dumber for having listened to him. And by the way, this guy was not an aberration at Court TV. All of their analysts were shell-shocked by the verdict, to a degree that was frankly hilarious. Watch.
But besides wow, which a lot of us are feeling, thoughts.
I was not expecting the top charge. I really was thinking that they would see manslaughter, still guilty, but manslaughter, different sentencing, but guilty of murder. So, that's heavy.
Wow.
And I hope everyone just does not seem like everyone's going to be calm. It seems like we're going to have a problem there.
Yeah,
Wow.
This is dumb.
You could see the.
This is dumb.
That's heavy. Wow. Shocking. Wow. Now, that reaction would be appropriate if a bald eagle had broken through the courthouse window and, pecked Carmelo Anthony's eyes out or something. I mean, they're acting like something totally unexpected and horrific just took place. And there are supposed to be legal analysts who do this for a living. For a legal expert, a guilty verdict in a case where even the defense's own witnesses said the defendant was at fault should be just about the least shocking development of all time. Manslaughter would have made sense if Anthony pulled out the knife and then Austin Metcalf tripped and impaled himself on it, which, by the way, is something the defense attorney offered as an actual explanation for the murder, as we remember. If that had really happened, which it didn't, then Carmelo Anthony would not have intended to kill somebody. Instead, he would have done something very reckless that led to a homicide, and therefore he would be guilty of manslaughter. In reality, Anthony brought a knife to a track meet, which is something no other athlete did because it's insane and also against the rules, and he was intent on using it. That's why he kept threatening Metcalf until the moment Metcalf touched him, at which point Anthony instantly stabbed him with enough strength to penetrate his sternum before running away and tossing the murder weapon. If that doesn't qualify as an intentional homicide, as murder, then nothing does. If that's not a murder, then no murder has ever happened in the entire history of the human race. This is rudimentary law, which is why the jury returned a verdict about as quickly as they possibly could. I mean, they took a lunch break, read the forms, maybe made some small talk, filled out the forms, and they were done. The whole process took less than 3 hours. And there's a reason for that, even if Court TV pretends not to understand it. But Court TV was not alone when it came to putting out embarrassingly bad coverage of the verdict. Here was CNN, always stepping up to the plate with bad coverage. Just for another example, watch.
Carmelo Anthony said, well, push me. See what happens then. And he pushed him, and that is when Carmelo Anthony rummaged through his bag, took out a knife, and the jury has determined that when that knife went into the chest of the victim, Austin Metcalf, that was murder. And there is a very wide range of 5 to 99 years, and the defense is going to try to get that down as close as they can to the 5 years. But the issue is he had a knife. We don't know why he had a knife. He did not take the stand. This was a self-defense case. And what was in Carmelo Anthony's head was so important because if he subjectively believed that he was going to be killed or seriously bodily injured by Austin Metcalf, who is the victim now, then he had a right to take out a knife. But he did not take the stand to testify in his own defense, so we don't know what was in his mind.
His attorneys argued that the killing was in self-defense, and a social justice group supporting Anthony compared him to Kyle Rittenhouse. What do you make of that comparison and the fact that the jury did not find that this was self-defense?
I'm really shocked by this decision by the jury. Look, this is going to be a difficult case for this country in this moment. It's going to be challenged by civil rights groups. You have a young black man who has now been charged with murder of a young white man by an all-white jury in Texas. And we know there were Batson challenges to the exclusion of black jurors by the defense attorneys for Anthony. Those challenges were not recognized by this court, so we should expect to see an immediate appeal on that basis. And I'm sure there's some other things that the defense attorney will appeal on.
Yeah, the Kyle Rittenhouse comparison is just amazing. These people have no shame. Kyle Rittenhouse was being chased down the street by an armed mob. And also, by the way, all of these so-called civil rights groups said that he was not justified. Literally every single person who's claiming that Carmelo Anthony is innocent and had a valid self-defense claim, all of them, literally all of them, said that Rittenhouse was not justified. So Rittenhouse being chased down the street by a mob that is armed That is not self-defense, they claimed, but stabbing an unarmed kid directly in the heart because he told you to leave a tent, that is self-defense. Totally shameless. And also, as a basic factual matter, speaking of being shameless, keep hearing this claim over and over again, this was not an all-white jury. It wasn't even close to an all-white jury. According to reporters in the courtroom, there were at least, there was one Middle Eastern juror, there were 3 Asians, and 1 Hispanic. It's a lot of minorities on the jury. The fact that there were no black jurors does not mean that the jury was all white. This is a very simple fact that CNN, which is allegedly a news network, managed to completely botch, assuming they didn't do it on purpose in order to encourage a race riot. Either way, this woman was somehow shocked by the verdict. Maybe she should have paid attention to the actual trial before going on television to complain about it. And by the way, even if it had been an all-white jury, which it wasn't, that would not be problematic at all in a predominantly white country. Statistically, it makes perfect sense that you'll have all-white juries sometimes because there are a lot more white people in the country than other races. And considering that white jurors are on average statistically far less tribal than black jurors, your chances of having a fair trial with an all-white jury are very high. So this claim about the all-white jury is both irrelevant, number one, and number two, factually untrue. Then there's the fact that the anchor at the beginning says, quote, if he subjectively believed he would be killed or injured, then he had a right to take out a knife. Well, no, that's not right. That's not even close to right. In this country, if you're going to engage in self-defense, it's not enough to have some subjective fear that something is going to happen to you. Your fear also has to be objectively reasonable under the circumstances. So even if Anthony truly believed his life was in danger for some reason, and he didn't, by the way, which is why he taunted Metcalf, calling him various profanities, implying he was weak and so on, refusing to leave the tent, it still does not mean that he's justified in pulling out a knife at a track meet. Objectively, in the situation he was in, grabbing the knife in his bag while daring Austin Metcalf to touch him and refusing to leave the tent was an unreasonable provocation. Therefore, there is no self-defense claim. I mean, think about the implications of the definition of self-defense that CNN is putting forward here, along with all of Anthony's supporters. If all it takes to justify lethal force is that someone touches you or that you subjectively feel that your life is in jeopardy, then you're free to butcher anyone who brushes up against you on public transportation. And the crazy vagrant at the end of the train ranting about how the lizard people are trying to kill him or something is justified in butchering you if he subjectively believes that you're one of the lizard people pursuing him. So they're putting forward a legal theory here that would lead immediately to untold carnage and the collapse of civilization. Other than that, good point, totally reasonable. But if you thought CNN and Court TV were having a hard time processing the verdict, they've got nothing on this guy from the Next Generation Action Network, a group that served as Carmelo Anthony's PR shop for the past year. Obviously, they've done a wonderful job. As best I could tell, this group is basically run by a con artist named Dominique Alexander, who swooped in very quickly and became involved in this case, presumably to grab some of the Give, Send, Go cash and or raise his profile. Whatever the case, he's a horrible human being. He's the guy who berated Austin Metcalf's grieving father at a press conference last summer. Just total scum. And yesterday, after the verdict came down, he delivered yet another humiliating press conference in front of a handful of fans who hate white people. Watch.
Speak on behalf of myself, Minister Dominique Alexander. I speak on behalf of myself as president of the Next Generation Action Network. The Next Generation Action Network wanted to respect this process, to be able to make sure that nobody said that the Next Generation Action Network obstructed this process, interfered in this process. But what this process did is shown that black lives do not matter in Collin County. It showed us that time and time in American history, it has shown us to remove emotions from yet the law. This trial showed that it put emotions over the law. After Trayvon Martin and so many countless names, it has shown us that black life is not safe in Collin County. It showed us that they did not listen to the law. It showed clearly that a judge interfered in this process. It showed very clearly that a black boy was allowed, not one black soul on a jury. An all white jury convicted him in 2 to 3 hours.
You can see he's lapsing into the MLK cadence. Why do they always do that? It's like it's you know, you're not giving the I have a dream speech here. You're outside of a courthouse where a kid just went to jail for stabbing someone to death. Thinks he's giving the I have a dream speech. You have to admire the extraordinary degree of self-confidence, though, on display here. I mean, here we have a spokesman who doesn't speak very well, but as far as I can tell, he's patting himself on the back because, in his words, the Next Generation Action Network did not instruct the legal process. I think he meant obstruct. But how would they have done that exactly beyond doing exactly what they did, namely holding insane press conferences where they attacked Metcalf's father? I mean, it sounds like he's vaguely implying that he could have intimidated the jury or something, but that can't possibly be right. I mean, he comes across as such a friendly, likable scumbag parasite, so I don't know what's going on. Then he makes the false claim, once again, that Anthony was tried by an all-white jury. This is a recurring theme among pretty much every black activist who talks about this case. It's totally false, but they all keep saying it. Here's Charleston White, for example. He apparently placed a $50,000 bet on an acquittal. So he's very upset. Watch.
We already got the money set aside for appeals bond. Why? All white jury, the judge and the DA are buddies, along with the dad, best friends. That's been our trump card. We've been holding, we already knew that. God has spoken, and you cannot make me believe that as many gray-haired white women on that jury that's dealing with white guilt about going to heaven is not gonna have no compassion about a kid that's been straight A from the time he's ever read a book in school.
Okay, dude, just shut up and drive the Uber, okay? He's got his Uber passengers in the car. I guess he's on the wrong side of the car for that, but either way, I don't know who those poor people are in the car that have to listen to this illiterate moron ranting. As far as I can tell, there's only one Carmelo Anthony supporter on the planet who understands that the jury was not all white. Here she is in all her glory, and pay attention to her top-line conclusion at the end of this interview here. Watch.
When they pick an all-white jury, they had 4 white women, 2 Asians,
3 Asians.
Well, it was 2 that made it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. 1 Indian lady. They had 4 males, 3 that was white. White people are dumb. They don't follow the law. They follow what them people tell.
Well, there you have it. White people are dumb. They're subhuman and they don't deserve to live. That's basically the idea. Really, this was the basic message that most of Anthony's supporters wanted to send. There was an incredible moment where 2 black supporters of Carmelo Anthony were being interviewed, a man and a woman, and the interviewer asks them if they're saying that white lives don't matter. And the woman says, "Oh, nobody's saying that." At the same time, the guy says, "F white lives," repeatedly, until the woman just sort of awkwardly walks off. Watch this moment here.
How about that? I'm saying that. Because y'all want to play these games. Y'all want to play these crackhead games, so I'm going to play them. White lives. How about that? How about that? I hate white people. I like it.
So there's some mixed messaging coming out of the Team Carmelo, to put it mildly. Nobody's saying white lives don't matter, except the guy right next to her on camera saying white lives don't matter, except for him. Now, of course, the reason most of Anthony's supporters are so fixated on the idea that the jury was all white, even though it wasn't, and it wouldn't matter if it was, isn't that they believe all white juries are unfair or that white people are stupid. On the contrary, they recognize that these statistics are accurate, and the black jurors on average are clearly biased in favor of black defendants. That's why they ignore the fact that the jury had Asians and Hispanics and Middle Eastern people on it. None of them are black, so in the eyes of the activists, they're useless. I mean, think about what they're confessing when they make this complaint. They're saying explicitly, what they're saying is that if a black person was on the jury, then Carmelo would have been acquitted or at least gotten a hung jury, which means that these activists themselves are saying that black jurors are tribalistic and will reach a foregone conclusion regardless of the facts. Carmelo Anthony was clearly guilty, but if only there were black people on the jury, he wouldn't have been found guilty. So they are very openly advocating for racial tribalism over colorblind, impartial justice. Obviously. For her part, Cardi B, criminal in her own right, weighed in with this insightful legal analysis in response to the verdict. Quote, "Wow, just freaking wow, disgusting. This is not justice. This is trying to make an example." Now, she says that like justice is incompatible with making an example of someone, but actually an important function of our judicial system is indeed making an example of people. That's what we should be doing. We should be making an example of every violent criminal. Yes, absolutely. We want potential criminals to look at Carmelo Anthony and conclude, I don't want to end up like him. Therefore, I'm not going to stab unarmed people because I feel like they're disrespecting me at a track meet. So yes, actually, we made an example of Carmelo Anthony, and we should make an example of every criminal like him. But I don't want to focus too much on Cardi B or Charleston White or Dominique Alexander because they're just a couple of prominent members of a very large and very dumb movement. And again, this is from yesterday outside the courthouse. One of my favorite clips from the day. You got to stick with it to the end. Here it is. Watch.
Trying to protect black people. Anytime a white man or a white child can go and put their hands aggressively on anybody and something like this occur, it's self-defense. It's self-defense. You put your hand on me and see how I respond. What will the Anthony family? What will the Anthony family? What will the people that's standing behind the Anthony family do? That's the question you should ask. We're going to stand behind them and we're going to fight. That's what's going to happen.
What is your relationship with Anthony?
I have no relationship. We black. We're
yes,
brothers.
Natalie.
We're black. We're
Native
brothers
Americans.
and sisters. We're blacks. We're the indigenous people of this earth. Ain't nobody out here giving them, bitch. We black. It's a repeat. Black people, black sisters and brothers, black kings and queens, we gotta stick together. This makes no goddamn sense. That young boy, he was defending his goddamn self.
Donald Trump is a goddamn bully.
We gotta stick together. We gotta stop hurting one another. Y'all don't see what's going on?
So it's an instant classic. You've got the angry black woman vaguely threatening to stab the reporter to death if he touches her, just like Carmelo Anthony stabbed Austin Metcalf. She says black people are the indigenous people of the earth, which implies that, you know, white people arrived from outer space, I guess. Descended down like celestial beings, I don't know. And then she says that she supports Anthony solely because he's black, as if there was any doubt about that. And everybody agrees with her. It's all very normal stuff, clearly the sign of a healthy, functioning democracy. And then, right when you least expect, the camera quickly pans to a random guy wearing a white towel who declares that Donald Trump is a bully, and everyone just kind of looks around awkwardly before the woman continues her rant like nothing happened. So, a lot of great stuff. I need to point out here again how absurd it is that some people are claiming that this trial had nothing to do with race. You know, when you have mobs of black people outside the courthouse saying that it is about race, and when they're donating $600,000 to the killer solely because he's black and his victim was white, then it is indeed about race. You might not want it to be about race. I don't want it to be about race, but it is. There's no getting around that. Whether you like it or not, the people outside the courthouse believe they have the right to execute white people with impunity. They're saying so very directly, and they're not alone. That's what these people are admitting on camera. So let's stop pretending otherwise. I mean, it's true that the verdict had nothing to do with race. The jury was not weighing race. The prosecutor wasn't prosecuting based on race. But the case overall became a story about race the moment thousands of black activists rallied around the killer and started handing hundreds of thousands of dollars to his family as a reward for murdering a white kid. Now, you could say it shouldn't be about race. That's true, but it is. Other protesters were somehow even less charming. A few women standing under a tent suggested that Hunter Metcalf, Austin's twin brother, should have been killed as well for reasons that aren't clear, except for the fact that he's also white, I guess. Watch.
They should have both been arrested. They should both should have been dead. The both brothers. Both of them should have been dead. Don't record me. I asked you not to record me.
Both of them should have been dead, she says. It's an almost cartoonishly villainous response. I mean, these people are so evil that it almost becomes farcical at a certain point. Except that it isn't funny because a young man was killed, and indeed he had a twin brother who held Austin in his arms as he died. And as a father of twin boys myself, that image fills me with immense grief and indescribable rage. I can't even imagine what the families feel. But you don't need to be the parent of twins to feel that way. You just need to be a human being with a soul, which is a bar too high for this woman to meet. Now, there's another irony here. They're also becoming very irate that Nick Sorter is recording them in their tent. Well, what do you think would have happened if Nick had gone under the tent and sat down and refused all of their requests to leave, for him to leave? What if they told him to leave 15 times and instead of leaving, he called them various profanities and taunted them? What would happen if Nick implied that he was armed and dared them to touch him? That would have been an interesting experiment. And the irony, of course, would have been lost on these morons, but you know, it would have been a very illustrative anyway. Speaking of interesting, the Black Panthers showed up to the courthouse with the black version of Eric Cartman, and she offered a few insights about the current state of race relations in the United States. Watch.
You know what? Let this be the mark in the sand. Eric, come on, sister. See, right. This is a war. This is a war. This is a war. And it's been going on. This war been going on. They'll never stop being racist.
That's an interesting clip, not just because that woman has the physique of a melting ice cream cone, also because back in the 70s, when the Black Panthers declared war on white people, it was a legitimate threat to the future of this country. You know, we needed to invent SWAT teams to deal with it, but if this woman is any indication, we don't need SWAT teams to handle the present-day Black Panthers. We need maybe a forklift. That's what they're reduced to, and everybody knows it. And it's not to say that black terrorists and supremacists aren't a threat to white people. They clearly are, but as a movement, black supremacy is at its lowest ebb, going back at least 60 years. And by the way, all the clips I've shown to this point have been pre-sentencing. The post-sentencing clips are also endlessly entertaining. In case you missed it, just a couple of hours after the jury found Carmelo Anthony guilty, they returned to the jury room to decide how to sentence him. And under Texas law, they had an extraordinary amount of discretion. They could have sentenced Anthony to anywhere from 2 years to 99 years when you consider all of their available options. In the end, they sentenced him to 35 years in prison. He'll be eligible for parole in 17 years, which doesn't mean he will be paroled, but he'll be eligible when he's around 35 years old. Now, that's obviously far too lenient a sentence. Carmelo Anthony should already be buried in a prison cemetery under a headstone marked only by his inmate number. That's how things used to work in this country.
Oh, no, that's fine.
And the alternative, at a minimum, he should have received a sentence of life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Supreme Court determined that those sentences are somehow unconstitutional for people under the age of 18 when they commit, the crime. So the maximum sentence in this case would have been 99 years with parole in 50 years. Instead, the jury opted for a sentence that is 35 years, far too light. At the same time, being realistic, 35 years is a lot more than I thought they'd give him. I mean, we were all, at least I was, bracing for a slap on the wrist kind of sentence where Anthony could walk free when he's 23 years old or something. And that didn't happen. So judging by that very low bar, this was a comparative win for justice. But once again, the black protesters outside the courthouse didn't see it that way. Watch.
What is that? What is self-defense?
because that could have been your mother. No, that could have been anybody mother. 35 mother years. Mother to mother. You should have said, don't get that man no. They said 5 and 99 to life. You should have said 5. Because you know that was trying to go down like this. 35 years.
Yeah, I ran that clip through a translator.
Shut up!
Gave up and then expired. But that's again for a different one. And it informs me that at some point during the rant, the woman stated something to the effect of, you should have taught your son to go get a mother effing adult like we know how to do. That could have been your son. That could have been anyone's mother effing son. And you know what? I agree with her. I mean, she made a, it got to me. She made a, it really resonated. It is so devastating. You know, what a heartbreaking verdict and sentence this was. Imagine being a black parent tonight. How do you protect your children? I mean, if they go out and stab just one person, they might go to prison. I mean, it's like a black man in America can't even murder anyone anymore. Just one murder and they go to prison. Think about that. Unimaginable. Heartbreaking. It's Jim Crow all over again. I'm furious. No, actually, what's remarkable about her statement is the implication that young black men always run to get an adult. She said, you know, get an adult like we always do. But that's the first I'm learning of this. Yes, you know, young black males, the demographic famous for de-escalating physical confrontations by immediately finding a chaperone to mediate the conflict. Happens all the time. Of course, in this case, if Metcalf had run to get an adult, then Anthony would have simply killed the adult. I mean, the whole point is that he didn't want to be told what to do. The fact that Metcalf was 17 was not relevant to his decision to commit murder. What led Anthony to murder was his lack of impulse control, his lack of basic morality and human decency, his lack of a proper upbringing. The age of his victim, I don't think mattered. But according to Jasmine Crockett, who's still in Congress apparently, all these protesters are on the right track. It turns out that according to Crockett, Carmelo Anthony was justified in stabbing Metcalf because of various facts that she makes up on the spot. Additionally, according to Jasmine Crockett, Anthony's knife was not a deadly weapon because it was small. And we all know that small things aren't deadly. Like bullets, for example. Hey, bullets are famous for how benign and harmless they are because they're small. Oh, look at that little bullet. Oh, how could that ever hurt anyone? Look how small it is. She also states that Austin Metcalf's family hasn't experienced anywhere near the same level of grief as just like the average black woman. So this is high-level thinking you're about to witness. Behold.
If a 300-pound man is beating me, like on top of me and beating me down, I'm not limited to fist. You know, I would argue that even the only time we go into things like people's hands being considered deadly weapons is typically like if they're a professional boxer or that kind of stuff. But I think by the time you start getting to like football player, good argument. Good freaking argument. We're not talking about like the golfers. We're talking about football players, right? Like this is what they are trained to do, is to inflict like serious physical contact. And it's my understanding that the deceit was that black women, especially black women who have black male children, live in fear and agony every single day. A fear and agony that I promise you, the Metcalfs probably never spent a day living that way. And we're gonna have just some real conversations about race in this country.
Awful,
Wait a minute, was it a switch? I don't know what he had.
It was like it seemed like it was a multi-tool, almost like a Swiss Army.
Like with like with the little scissors and everything and whatever. So it was small. Well, I would argue the size of it alone, you wouldn't even think it's a deadly weapon.
And
I forgot he had through the bag.
If it was one of the little, like I don't know, like I do think.
Well, that's why he went to his coach and was like, but I don't think I heard him that.
Yeah, well, I would argue that you're retarded, Madam Congresswoman. I mean, like medically, you should go get checked out. You might be eligible for additional entitlements. And she says that the average black woman carries around more grief just by existing than the parents of Austin Metcalf, whose child was just stabbed in the heart and killed. I mean, this is psychotic. This is, I say, this is not just like being dumb. This is psychosis. And it's part of the left's mythology that we've talked about before. Probably their dumbest mythology, and that's saying something, is this idea that like the average black woman in America is just this martyr, this quiet sort of martyr-like figure who quietly, with great dignity, carries the burdens of the whole human race on her shoulders. Just this, it's nothing to do with reality whatsoever. Could not be more divorced from the actual reality that we all see around us, but this is what she says. And put aside the fact that the knife that she's talking about that was so small was used to kill someone. Other than that small, inconsequential detail, you wouldn't think it's a deadly weapon. You know, a deadly weapon has to be large, says Jasmine Crockett. Everyone knows that. A bazooka is a deadly weapon because it's big and heavy. So is a tank. This is the legal definition of a deadly weapon. A deadly weapon, it says in the law, is, and I quote, big and scary. But if a weapon is not big and scary, then it's not deadly, even if you kill somebody with it. I mean, a knife is about the size of a pencil. That's like really small. Therefore, it can't be a deadly weapon. When you stab someone to death and the police show up, the first thing they ask is, well, how big was the knife? Oh, it's 2 inches. Oh, well, you're fine then. But have a good day. As we get closer to America's 250th anniversary, here's a question worth asking. Is it possible to actually fix education, restore some civic sanity, and enjoy summer with your family all at once? Mount Titano Media says yes. It's called Finding Our Words, Words That Made America, a collection of the greatest speeches in American history. Many of them have been almost completely forgotten, which is a shame because these are the words that defined what this country is supposed to be. This summer, you can read it or listen to the new Audible edition featuring voices you'll recognize, including Michael Knowles, Andrew Klavan, Spencer Klavan, Bill Whittle, U.S. Army generals, and leaders in classical education. Every speech comes with a beautifully written essay by journalist Tracy Lee Simmons, so you actually understand the full context of what you're hearing. This is the perfect summer read, alone, with your kids, on a road trip, wherever. Let these words do what they were meant to do. Go to mounttitanomedia.com. Get your copy of Finding Our Words, the Words That Made America. Again, that's mounttitanomedia.com. You can usually tell pretty quickly who actually wants a job and who's just going through the motions. Some people show up prepared, engaged, ready to work. Others, not so much. If you need to hire for your business, how do you separate the candidates who are really excited about your opportunity from the ones that are just kind of meh? Well, ZipRecruiter is how you do it. ZipRecruiter has a new feature that quickly lets you see the most interested, qualified candidates first, so you meet the right people faster. And now you can try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/Walsh. ZipRecruiter's new feature puts the most interested, qualified candidates right at the top of your list. No wasting time sorting through people who are not serious. Their smart matching technology also connects you with the qualified candidates and does it fast. And candidates can actually explain why they want the job. Use ZipRecruiter and find enthusiastic talent fast. 4 to 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. And now you can try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/Walsh. That's ZipRecruiter.com/Walsh. Meet your match on ZipRecruiter. Now, if you're beginning to suspect that Anthony's defenders have extremely low IQs, that they can barely understand the world around them, much less abstract concepts like self-defense or justice, then you may be onto something. As for the claim that football players are trained to beat people up, other than maybe the Saints during Bountygate, that's not true either. And regardless, of course, that's not what Metcalf did. He did not just go wailing on Carmelo Anthony, he barely touched him. There wasn't a single witness who testified that Austin Metcalf did anything to Carmelo Anthony other than lightly push him in order to get him to move out of the tent where he wasn't supposed to be. The only conclusion we can draw here is that these activists recognize that Anthony is guilty, which is why they have to fabricate key details of the case in order to justify his murder. All the same, as tempting as it would be to spend the next 5 hours mocking Carmelo Anthony and his awful family and his truly barbaric supporters, there's a broader point that needs to be made here. 6 years ago, this trial would not have ended this way. It's likely that prosecutors would not have brought charges in the first place. I mean, at the height of BLM insanity, 35 years was a sentence you would get if you were a white guy who filmed a crime. And it wasn't the kind of sentence you'd get if you were a black perpetrator stabbing a white victim, especially if you had the corporate press and BLM activists on your side. Well, that's changed now. As I said at the outset, we've simply had enough of this. I mean, no amount of whining from black activists is going to convince us or compel us to go back to the way things were. The Western world has had enough, which is why, by the way, Belfast is on fire right now. What's the expression again? The buildings are on fire. No, I don't think they are, mate. Looks like climate change to me, mate. It's a mostly peaceful arson spree. Now, really, you can condemn it all you want. But the reality is there's only so much abuse that the indigenous people of Europe can take. It's only a matter of time before they would unite and defend their nation and their way of life and fight back against a full-scale invasion that is intended to replace them. They just saw their government cover up the horrific murder of a first-year university student named Henry Novak at the hands of a third-world thug whose family never should have been allowed in the country in the first place. It's not like he was a rocket scientist who they imported into Britain because he was a vital contributor to the British economy. He was a gig worker delivering food. I mean, he was an economic drain on the country, and neither he nor his family had any interest in assimilating. Quite the contrary, they wanted to kill white people and conquer the country. And to this day, the government is hiding the videos the killer shot with his phone as he taunted Henry Novak in his final moments. All we saw was a portion of the body cam footage, which was horrific all on its own. Imagine what the rest of it looks like. And then just days after Britons saw the footage of the police officers attacking or mocking Henry Novak as he lay dying, just after that, they saw this. All of the Western world saw this. Some barbarian from Sudan tries to behead a white guy on the street. And how does the government of the UK respond? By lecturing the right wing about inciting violence, by telling people not to share the footage because it might inflame tensions. Well, guess what? The government has lost control of the situation. So here's what so-called migrant houses look like in Belfast right now. These are taxpayer-funded houses for illegal aliens, which the government hands out, even though many native Britons can't afford housing. But this is what it looks like. The houses are on fire and the foreigners are being escorted out by firefighters. Now, to understand how radical this is, realize that Britain has sent women to prison for tweeting out support for anti-immigrant demonstrations. And this is where we are now. I mean, these people are simply not afraid of their government anymore. The government has lost legitimacy. Watch.
On the outskirts of North Belfast, several hundred people gathered at the Clockfern roundabout. After the speeches, 200 masked men broke away and marched into the White Abbey estate.
Now, you may not approve of violence. I don't approve of it either. But nonetheless, as a factual matter, what's happening right now is that the people of the UK have had enough. And the more the police and the government try to suppress the truth, the worse things are going to get. Watch this.
So this evening you can expect to see an increased police presence across Northern Ireland and over the coming days to help support and reassure all of our communities and to keep them safe. We understand also there's considerable posting on social media and people will have really well questions and concerns. But please do not share footage that might cause trauma and risk to the loved ones of those families involved and on our investigation. We're also aware of protest activity planned across Northern Ireland this evening and continue to monitor that and plan accordingly. I know that last night left people feeling a range of emotions from fear to anger. People will want to have their voices heard. But we all remember over the last 2 years significant disorder that only led to damage in our local communities and young people getting caught up in disorder.
Please do not share footage that might cause trauma. That's the official response of the police force to the footage of a beheading on the streets of Belfast. They're claiming that the problem is the fact that people recorded the beheading, not the beheading itself. This is the line the whole government is using. Here's a statement from a leftist member of parliament from Belfast named Claire Hanna. Quote, "The violence in Belfast was horrific. The video will create fear and shock. No good will come of sharing it. or of turning on each other in this society, including for the cloud of online voices who don't know or care about us and who offer absolutely nothing for the future. So the problem is not the beheading, it's the footage of the beheading. I wonder, I haven't checked, but what would happen if I went back and checked this woman's tweets to see what she had to say when the video of George Floyd was making the rounds? Did she say the same thing? Hey, don't share that video. It's being used by people for clout. Something tells me she didn't. Hannah also appeared on television where she pushed the same message. Watch this.
It's nightmarish, and you've seen some of those scenes. Obviously, unspeakable violence in North Belfast, and people understandably revulsed and shocked and fearful and angry. But within minutes, unfortunately, negative actors online and politicians locally who don't really care what communities in North Belfast have been through, straight into the issue to incite and to divide and to call men out onto the streets in Belfast. And what you're seeing is a race-based pogrom. We are seeing men going door to door, asking to get the foreigners out based exclusively on the colour of their skin. It's not based on what they're contributing to society, what their status here is. And it's terrifying for people in Belfast who want this sort of politics to be far beyond them.
Well, she's wrong when she claims that this is a race-based pogrom. No one in Belfast hates anybody because of the color of their skin. That's not why they're trying to evict people from the country. They don't have some irrational disdain for certain skin colors. People in Belfast are furious about the fact that they're overrun with invaders, many of whom are violent, and most of whom are clearly net negatives on society. Open borders as a policy choice has been catastrophic for the native people of the UK. It's obviously unsustainable. It's hurting everybody and their families and their children. That's what they're upset about. While the demonstrations and riots are most intense in Belfast, they're happening all over the UK. As far away as Liverpool, Britons are openly mocking migrants in the streets. Watch. They're saying, get back on your dinghies, meaning that they should get back on their boats and go home. And in the video, they're talking to Deliveroo drivers, which, as best I can tell, is the UK equivalent of DoorDash. The man who killed Henry Novak was a driver for Deliveroo. It's one of the most common occupations for migrants living in the country. What the leaders of the UK need to understand is that while these comments are obviously offensive and ugly to their sensibilities, they're also the moderate option. Mocking foreign invaders and deporting them is the more measured path. The radical one, the one that's surfacing now in Belfast, is the one that nobody should want. It's the much uglier thing that nobody should want to see. I certainly don't. The radical path is chaos that no one can control. And that outcome becomes inevitable the more the British government takes the side of invaders over their own citizens. We're talking about citizens who should be heirs to an empire. Instead, they're a global laughingstock, and it's all because of open borders and decades of globalist rule. It's an untenable situation. This photo from PA Wire sums up the situation about as well as anyone can. There's a transit bus on fire in the background, and on the public display system, which has been hasn't been affected by the blaze, on the public space system, a message reads, "Apologies for any inconvenience." So it's an effective and sobering illustration of the state of the UK, which is currently in a state of managed decline. They're expected to be polite and proper as foreigners slaughter them in the streets and as their country falls apart from within. But a lot of them aren't going along with it anymore. And as the Carmelo Anthony verdict demonstrates, neither are we. The genocidal, anti-white, anti-Western race hustlers are losing. They are flailing, they are defeated, they are barely coherent, and they are desperate. We still have a lot of work to do if we want to restore the Western world to what it once was, but the first step, which is always going to be the hardest, has just been taken from the UK to Texas. The step was to listen carefully to the complaints of a deranged, violent mob to comprehend exactly what they're saying and what they're trying to do, and to respond simply, things move differently now. The fact that we can finally take that step without apologizing for ourselves is the single most important development in Western civilization in living memory. The reason they're in a panic is that, as dumb and incoherent as they may be, even they can see it too. That'll do it for the show today. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Talk to you tomorrow. Have a great day. Godspeed. Last month, we judged Martin Luther King Jr. not by the color of his skin, but by the content of his character. American school kids spend a lot of time hearing about MLK and Rosa Parks. Have you noticed no one ever asks what Birmingham, Selma, and Montgomery are like today? The legacy of the civil rights movement wasn't a racially harmonious utopia. It's hollowed out urban cores, hundreds of thousands of dead Americans, raped grandmothers, ethnic cleansing entire neighborhoods. This month, we survey firsthand accounts of the historic wave of nonviolent crime, riots unleashed on this country by the civil rights movement, which caused more enduring damage on America's greatest cities than the atomic bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Who were the winners? And who were the losers? What's the truth about redlining, white flight, affirmative action? Don't want to miss the second part of our special on the civil rights movement, The Looting of America, on Daily Wire Plus.
The republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome. The purpose of today's hearing is to examine the State Department's fiscal year 2027 budget requests and identify where we are achieving the greatest returns on our investment on behalf of the American taxpayers, and how the department is realigning programs and bureaucracy to support the President's America First policy agenda. I will now recognize myself for a very brief opening statement. Mr. Secretary, I appreciate you being here today. I know that members are eager to get to their questions, so I'll be very brief. We appreciate your attendance. I can give you a foreshadowing of what you're about to experience. My Democrat colleagues are going to sit up here and say that they haven't heard from the administration. I'm going to thank you for the 30 times just in this Congress that the State Department has briefed the full committee, the subcommittee, roundtables, other times that you all have been here to brief us on a myriad of issues. I want to thank you for the over 20 briefings that you've given to Congress by yourself with General Kane, Director Radcliffe, Secretary Hegseth, and others since the start of Operation Epic Fury. Some of my colleagues in here will say that we are in a war of choice with no real threat to the U.S. I want to say to you, thank you for choosing to kill those who have been attacking and killing us for over 47 years, specifically attacking us over 350 times in the 30 months prior to Operation Epic Fury. Under senile Joe Biden, my colleagues over here voted to say use any and all means to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon. So I want to thank you for bringing the heat to Iran, even though most of my colleagues on the left now say that Iran poses no threat. They pretend as though they have never been attacking us. I also want to thank you for the work that you've done to reset the Western Hemisphere. While you've been focused on bettering our relationships in places like Panama, Cuba, Venezuela, throughout the Gulf of America, the Biden and Blinken administration focused on funding drag shows in Ecuador and transgender operas in Colombia. I would say your work is significantly better. So I want to thank you for the substantial change in putting America first in our foreign policy. And with that, I will recognize Ranking Member Meeks for whatever he has to say.
Thank you, Secretary Rubio, for being here today. You know, 18 months ago, you inherited the most powerful diplomatic institution in the world, built on 3 pillars that have defined American leadership since World War II. I call them the 3 Ds: diplomacy, dialogue, and development. And in just 18 months, the Trump administration has taken a wrecking ball to all 3. This administration has involved and have invoked a worldview from years past that has left the United States isolated and struggling economically. What you see is a greatest hits album of failed ideas from the last century. Tariffs, spheres of influence, attacks on civil rights and immigration, ignoring science and hoping for the best. Mr. Secretary, America cannot win the future by trying to relive the past. And your department is Exhibit A. We've seen the systematic dismantling of America's diplomatic corps. Over 100 ambassador posts sit vacant around the world. 1,300 career professionals, people with decades of expertise in energy, counterterrorism, and nuclear nonproliferation have been fired. Efforts to ensure U.S. diplomats represent the diversity of America have been squandered. While China increases its diplomatic presence globally, we have cut ours to the bone. America cannot win the future by retreating and ceding the field. On trade, this administration revived Smoot-Hawley, and we all know how that ended. Trump's tariffs raised costs for American people, harmed small businesses, and alienated our allies. We cannot build a 21st century economy on 20th century failures. Mr. Secretary, after decades of forever war in the Middle East, President Trump promised the American people no new wars, only to send a new generation of troops back to the Middle East. We've traded dialogue for bombs yet again. And where does that leave us today? The Iranian regime still has its missiles, its drones, its proxies, and its nuclear material. There is an Ayatollah still in power, only he's younger. With the IRGC more entrenched and more hardline. The Strait of Hormuz is closed. It wasn't before you started this war. It wasn't before we lost 14 American troops. Before American bombs killed 168 Iranian schoolgirls. Before Americans were forced to spend over $100 billion on this war. You helped spin the perfect pretext for this war and then failed to prepare American embassies and citizens when the bombs started falling. Those who have defended and enabled this war share direct responsibility for the economic pain American families are bearing as a result. Our allies were ill-advised, and that's why they are sitting on the sidelines while Gulf energy infrastructure and American bases take income. Trump said America first. Now America's alone. In our hemisphere, talk of reasserting dominance has meant illegally abducting foreign leaders, installing one autocrat in place of another, bombing boats without due process, and blockading civilian populations. That is not American leadership. Those are not American values. That is behavior we built the rules-based order to prevent. The Trump administration's attack on foreign aid and development efforts remain equally destructive and regressive. This administration's policies have directly contributed to famine in South Sudan and have undermined our ability to respond to the latest Ebola outbreak in real time. HIV rates are rising. Mr. Secretary, These cuts have resulted in the avoidable death of hundreds of thousands of children around the world. And we cannot protect Americans by ignoring science or forgetting what ignoring it cost us before. So, Mr. Secretary, on climate and energy, the story is the same.
Ranking member's time has expired. Other members of the committee are reminded that opening statements may be submitted for the record. We're pleased to have Secretary of State Marco Rubio before us today. Your full statements will be made a part of the record. I'll ask you to keep your spoken remarks to 5 minutes in order to allow time for member questions. I now recognize Secretary Rubio for your opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Ranking Member, and all the members of the committee for having me. I have a written opening statement. I'll submit it. I'll try to cut the 5 minutes in half if I can. Let's just get right to the point. I think that I would characterize the last 16, 17 months at the State Department as two things. A history of tremendous successes combined with ongoing and difficult challenges. And we will always have ongoing and difficult challenges in the world. Let me walk through them one by one. India and Pakistan were on the verge of an all-out war. The State Department and I personally were involved in de-escalating that conflict and bringing it to an end, a war between two nuclear powers. Thailand and Cambodia were involved in a war. Cambodia, a country we haven't normally had close relations with in a very long time. The U.S., the president personally played a pivotal role, not once, but twice, restoring ceasefires and ending that conflict. Obviously, the war in Gaza was brought to an end. Not only that, but all the hostages that remained were released, both the bodies and those who were alive. Armenia and Azerbaijan, that conflict ended. Not only did it end, but it ended with an agreement that I signed the MOU on yesterday, creating a new prosperity route, the TRIP route, which will provide extraordinary opportunities for both countries, especially for Armenia, while respecting their sovereignty, to really benefit from that. The Shield of the Americas was stood up. That means over 14 countries in the hemisphere, 14 countries in the hemisphere have signed up to partner with us on counterterrorism, counter-narcotics, and security matters. And we believe that that number will grow over the next few months as elections change leaderships in various countries. We held a rare earths ministerial that was attended by over 30 some odd countries from around the world, all who were signing up for an American-led effort to ensure that critical supplies of rare earth minerals around the world are available for our emerging economies, and we don't remain overly dependent on China. We also announced the Pax Silica proposal, which is growing, but it's at 14 members now. These are 14 countries that are cooperating with one another to protect the supply chains critical to AI and AI development in the future. In Venezuela, we now have a functioning and open embassy. We have people traveling there for the first time. It's not where it needs to be, but it is a long ways from where it was 5 months ago, and poses not nearly the threat it once posed to America's national security. We're not satisfied with where it is, but we've come a long way. We're certainly better off than we were 5 months ago. On Nigeria, where many were very concerned about violence against Christians. We are now actively in counterterrorism cooperation with the Nigerian government and Nigerian security forces, including a joint operation a couple weeks ago that took out the #2 leader of global ISIS operating from inside of the country, and that continues. The Pacific Islands, small Pacific Islands, under constant pressure and threat from China, have received more attention from this administration than they received in the last 10 years combined, and deliverables are coming along the way. The Quad, an important alliance in the Indo-Pacific between India, Japan, Australia. We've had multiple meetings of that group, including a meeting just last week in India, and a follow-up that's going to occur later this year, including a leaders meeting before the end of the year. As I speak to you now for the second consecutive day, and for the first time in many, many years, the leaders of the legitimate government of Lebanon and leaders from the government of Israel are seated at the State Department for the second day in a row, and hopefully today we'll produce a joint statement and an action plan on a track for security in that country, independent from Hezbollah, independent from their nefarious influence. They had similar meetings last week at the Pentagon at the military level. We have signed 32 health compacts. 32 countries have signed health compacts with the United States, where our aid to those countries will not just be dollars distributed to an NGO who then will go into the country and impose programs. Instead, we are partnering with 32 countries, many of them in the African continent, in which we will empower their native and domestic health industries and national health systems, so that they can, not only are we treating the acute situations on the ground of people that are sick, we are helping them build the capacity and the capability to do this for themselves. This is what these countries want. They do not want to be perpetual aid recipients. They want to be able to take care of their people one day, and we are helping them as part of our aid to build that infrastructure. I could go on, but let me just say another point. We are better today than we have ever been at disaster relief. Today, the United States can respond to disasters around the world on a humanitarian basis faster and more effectively than they ever have because of our reorganization. And the proof is our response in Jamaica, our response to 2 typhoons in the Pacific, our ability to quickly deploy within 24 hours and bring aid directly, coordinating with the governments to people, is better than it has ever been because we cut out bureaucracy, we cut out the middleman, and we went right to the point. We still have challenges. On Sudan, remains a very frustrating situation. We remain deeply engaged with the Quad in these negotiations. As many of you are aware, unfortunately, Sudan has turned into a proxy war between multiple countries, and the divisions between the UAE and Saudi Arabia have truly complicated our ability to bring that to an end. What we're focused on there now is identifying 2 cities, or 4 cities, 2 on each side, that will serve as points of distribution for humanitarian aid. But the inability, the real frustrating thing about Sudan is that one side or the other will agree to something, but then they will not comply. But we remain focused on that, and we have people that work on that full time. We even had a donor conference just about a month and a half ago where hundreds of millions of dollars in pledges for not just humanitarian aid, but reconstruction. We're focused on that. It's an ongoing challenge. On DRC and Rwanda, they signed a peace agreement. Unfortunately, compliance has not been good. We've had to impose a few sanctions on the Rwandan side. We are starting to see some compliance. It's moving, not moving fast enough, but we're hoping to see compliance at some point in the middle part of next month in withdrawing the Rwandan troops from there. Of course, we still have the M23 problem that has to be addressed. So this is a host of issues we could go on. Obviously, the ongoing challenges of Iran remain, as I'm sure we'll speak about extensively in your questions today. So I apologize, that took 4 minutes and 55 seconds, but I tried to talk as fast as I could. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Rubio. I now recognize Ranking Member Meeks for 5 minutes of questions.
I'm going to ask you to answer my questions quickly because clearly the chairman wants to protect you. That's why he's cutting me off my opening statement. But, Secretary.
You had 5 minutes.
Secretary, you have the honor of serving both the acting National Security Advisor and Secretary of State. In these roles, you've played a central role in advising the President as Commander-in-Chief to launch a war against Iran, and the impacts of this choice have been significant for allies and partners who immediately have targeted by retaliatory strikes, as well as for Americans here at home. 3 months into this war, gas and food prices are up, inflation is rising, American business owners and farmers are struggling from higher shipping and commodity costs, and yet the President said 2 weeks ago, and I quote, "I don't think about Americans' financial situation." That's a quote that should alarm every American. Americans are also rightfully concerned that while they struggle with affordability due to the war in Iran, the President of the United States is busy day trading on it. He disclosed purchases of stocks in energy and defense companies in the first quarter of this year that were made just as those companies' profits were soaring from the war in Iran. On March 23rd, the same day he reversed his threat to strike Iranian energy, infrastructure, and energy stocks rose. He brought stocks then in Phillips 66, Exxon, and Chevron. Secretary, I have a few questions, and again, given the amount of time that I have, I will ask you to give me yes and no answers. Did you warn President Trump before the war in Iran began that this conflict would drive up costs on gas, food, travel, and ship?
Yeah, I'll warn you right now, I don't do yes or no answers.
Yeah,
So
well,
these
I
are
only have
complex
5
questions.
minutes. I know when
Well,
you
so
were
do
the
I.
senator, you know
I
about
never
this
did yes or
business,
no answers
and I
to
know
people.
you're trying to go out so that you can run out my 5 minutes. That's a simple
I'm trying
question.
to run out your 5 minutes. You're running out your 5 minutes.
Did you?
I don't do yes or no questions. You want to answer me a question, I'll answer
I'm
your
answering.
question.
You answer my question. It's my time. Did you?
Did I what?
Yes or no? Did you warn President Trump
The president
before
was
the
fully-
Iran war began that this conflict would drive up costs on gas, food, travel, and ship?
The president,
yes or no?
The president and the full administration was aware that there would be consequences to action, but the consequences of Iran having a nuclear weapon were worse.
Did you warn him? Did you warn him that launching a war in Iran could result in the regime placing a chokehold on the Strait of Hormuz?
All the risk factors were understood, but the most important risk factor
I just
was
want to know
Iran
if you did
cannot
your
have a
job.
nuclear
Did you
weapon.
warn him?
Iran
If
cannot
you
have a
didn't warn him,
nuclear
say
weapon.
yes. It's simple.
Everyone was aware of what Iran might
Did you
do in
warn him?
retaliation.
I'm asking you a second. Did you
Everyone
warn him?
was aware.
Don't
of
want to
what
answer that. Let
Iran
me ask you
would
the next
do.
question.
But the worst part
Did
is that
you
they
warn
can't
the
have a nuclear-
president that launching U.S. strikes against Iran would result in retaliatory attacks on U.S. allies, partners, and Americans living or working in the Middle East?
Everyone
Yes
understood
or
what
no?
Iran would do in response.
Did you warn them?
We were prepared for any response that
You
they
warned?
came out with.
Okay.
We knew it.
Just want to make
but
sure.
They can't have a nuclear
So
weapon.
you said you warned them. Did you warn the president that the personal stock purchases and companies profiting from the war that he launched could present a conflict of interest?
I'm not aware of the president's stock purchases. I don't deal with that, and I don't even know what you're saying is true.
Well, we know that because it is made public what his stock purchases were.
You say so. I don't read the president's financial disclosure, but I don't believe that to be true.
Well, I think then the president should be more transparent. Secretary, because these are basic questions that I'm asking you, and to be transparent with the American people. This is what this is all about. The transparency. So, for example, when you go and look at some of your statements that you made in regards to Cuba, I only have 58 seconds left.
No, I want some coffee. Can you
talked
pour
about,
some?
Gaisa, who's controlling the military and what's taking place there, and that they have the opportunity to benefit while the Cuban people are suffering. So what we're seeing here now, the one person that's benefited from this war by his purchase of stocks, him and his friends, they have made billions of dollars while the American people are suffering. You've accused, and I agree, with reference to some folks, what they're doing in Cuba and how they're making money while people suffer. That's what's taking place in the United States of America. The Trump administration and his friends are making billions of dollars while the American people suffer. And they continue to suffer.
Breaks my
as
heart, but
gas
ranking
prices
member's time
go
has
up.
expired. Representative McCall is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me thank you for your service. Secretary, I know you're wearing a lot of hats, a lot of responsibilities. I think you're doing an outstanding job. Let me just say, since 1979, a dark veil of terror descended upon the Middle East, and we've had it ever since. And every president since that time has said that a nuclear Iran is not acceptable. And every Congress has said that. In fact, last Congress, when I was chairman of this committee, I passed a resolution that said that a nuclear Iran was unacceptable and that the U.S. must use any means necessary to prevent them from obtaining a nuclear weapon. The vast majority of Democrats voted for this. Almost all Republicans. It passed the House floor, a resolution stating that that is not acceptable. We've had a lot of talk in these Congresses and prior administrations, a lot of talk, but we haven't had a whole lot of action. Your administration, you, sir, and the president have taken action on this very dire, dangerous situation we find ourselves in with Iran obtaining a nuclear weapon. I also want to applaud you for your efforts in this Western Hemisphere. A free Venezuela, a free people, possibly one day a free Cuba. And people don't realize Iran is in this hemisphere, and Russia is in this hemisphere, and China is in this hemisphere. This is all kind of tied together in a coherent foreign policy strategy that I see. So I want to give you the time, sir, to respond to that because, again, all talk and no action. But you, sir, have put this into action.
Thank you. Well, let me just, before I address that, the ranking member made accusations against the president, which I've never heard before, but number one, are completely false. Not once. Just to be clear, not a single time, not even for a millisecond, has the president ever discussed his personal economics in relations to war or any public policy that he's made for that matter. And I've been in every one of his foreign policy meetings for the most part. As to your point, what we need to understand is exactly what you just said. It's not just that we say they can't have a nuclear weapon. Everyone says they can't have a nuclear weapon. The Chinese say they can't have a nuclear weapon. The Russians agree they couldn't have a nuclear weapon. But at a point, you have to do something about it. What Iran was trying to do was build a conventional shield of drones and missiles and a navy and capabilities. At some point, they would say to the world, now we're going to get a nuclear weapon, and you can't do anything about it because we have so many weapons and so many drones and so many naval vessels that the price price we will inflict on you for trying to do something about it makes us untouchable, makes us immune. And the president was not going to allow them to build a conventional shield to develop their nuclear program. Today, the Iranian Navy sits at the bottom of the sea. They do not have a Navy. It no longer exists. They have no Air Force either. Their missile launchers have been significantly degraded. Their defense industrial base has suffered upwards of 80 to 90% of attrition. It will take years for them to rebuild it. Those are facts. That is the reality. That was the purpose of Epic Fury. It achieved its purpose in degrading that convention. And it has brought them to the negotiation table that hopefully will lead to the point where Iran will give up its enrichment ambitions, will turn over the highly enriched uranium, will stop sponsoring terrorism around the world.
You know, and I think the goal should be the fulfillment of the Abraham Accords. We know why October 7th happened, because Israel and Saudi were getting very, very close, and in Iran's perspective, dangerously close to a normalization agreement. And what did Iran do? They lit up their proxies. They lit up their proxies to stop that from happening. I do foresee a free Iran. I do foresee a free Venezuela and a free Cuba. But you have to start somewhere. And I think we are taking the steps so that future generations will thank us for these actions.
Look, and on the point of, we would love to see a change in Iran and that they be governed by people, but that was not the goal of our mission. The goal of our mission was to take away their ability to threaten the region with an overwhelming number of missiles and drones that would basically make them immune to any sort of external pressure, and then they could break out to a nuclear weapon. That was the goal. It achieved that from a military perspective. The reality of it remains that it's not just us. The entire world says they can't have a nuclear weapon, but no one wanted to do anything about it. And I can tell you this, they are not going to have a nuclear weapons program, at least as long as President Trump is in the White House. That's been made clear to everyone in the administration from the very top down. It was the motivation behind these actions, and it's the reason why we engaged the way we did.
Well, I want to thank you again in the last 10 seconds for your service. I would hope we could unify as a nation behind this. I would hope our allies would unify behind us on this, because they've all said it as we have said it in the past, and yet it was all talk and no action.
Representative's time has expired. Representative Keating is recognized.
Chairman, for the record, I ask unanimous consent to submit the President's financial disclosure form, which will detail those dealings that were referred to by the ranking member.
Without objection.
Secretary, thank you for being here. In conjunction with your job, you're also the National Security Advisor with access to the most sensitive intelligence secrets our countries and other countries have in the world. But before this, you had these two positions. You had a distinguished career as a member and a chair for 5 years of the Senate Intelligence Committee up to last year. And you and Senator Warner are some of the most respected and knowledgeable people at that time and voices in the entire intelligence community, earning the trust of Democrats and Republicans alike, senators, House members, and other countries. So with all your Intelligence Committee experience, and now as Secretary of State and National Security Advisor, and all those years of experience, have you ever, specifically in the context of the intelligence community, heard the name Bill Pulte?
In the context of intelligence?
That's what I said.
No, I have
never heard his name. Okay, thank you for answering that.
Well,
never even heard his name. Given all your years of experience and your position now, never heard the name. For the record, Bill Pulte is a person Donald Trump has chosen for the acting director of national intelligence with no experience in the intelligence field, whose misuse, widely reported, of confidential information led to the prosecution of the president's political enemies, is now the person in charge of the nation's most closely guarded intelligence when he couldn't even conduct himself appropriately as the federal housing finance director. Now, Secretary, have you ever heard of the name Ira Zahari?
Who's that?
You've never heard the name Ira Zahari?
I mean, it doesn't ring a bell off the top.
In the context of security? Well, let me tell you. Mr. Zahari pleaded guilty for breaking into the Capitol on January 6th through a broken window, wielding a metal rod as a weapon. And Donald Trump appointed him to a team at the Pentagon focused on irregular warfare and, of all things, counterterrorism. That's ironic, given that he participated in one of the most significant incidents of domestic terror in our country's history. I think it's shameful the people that are being appointed And I think it's also shameful some of the people that have been fired. Now, I want to move to Iran. Because given your nuclear and intelligence background, which is extensive and appreciated and respected, I'm sure you're aware that Ukraine, the country at the time with the third largest nuclear arsenal, peacefully turned over their nuclear weapons in conjunction with the Budapest Memorandum and in exchange for the U.S. commitment to defend Ukraine if it ever came under threat. The U.S. gave their word to Ukraine they would defend them. And I found this amazing. In your opening remarks, that you took us all over the world, and you mentioned 15 different incidents where you have interceded. 15, the top 15. Not once did you mention Ukraine when you were prioritizing the achievement that's there. Now let me go on.
Tried to stay under
Let me
5
go
minutes.
on. Oh, you tried to stay, yeah, please.
I
It's
can
not
answer
funny.
that.
It's not funny, Secretary. Now,
What's not funny
in
is
Iran
that-
now,
Well, you don't.
in
listen,
Iran
you
now,
can't even
I
answer
reclaim
questions
my
here.
time. I reclaim my time, Mr. Chairman.
You
He's
guys make these
interrupting me.
statements and no
He
one can
is
respond.
interrupting me. I'm doing it. I'm asking you to reclaim those seconds back.
No.
Now in Iran, what goes around comes around, Mr. Chairman. Now in Iran, the Trump administration issues a general license to Russia, providing billions in oil profits every month, several billion every month, fueling Putin's war machine. You didn't mention that in your opening remarks. And then this is a war of aggression of Russia attacking Ukraine, which we gave our agreement. And this is to a country that's assisting us in Iran, Ukraine, and helping a country with a war machine that are aiding Iran against us and putting our service members in jeopardy. Look, we have an opportunity as members just today to vote on the Ukraine Support Act. I hope we do it, and I am confident that we have bipartisan support. But I hope this administration will act on its own. They could do things themselves that you didn't mention, like rescind these general licenses, complete a bilateral drone agreement with Ukraine, provide direct military assistance that has access to the Ukraine, implement comprehensive sanctions packages,
Representative's
and condemn
time has expired.
the arrest.
Representative
Thank you,
Smith
Mr.
of New
Chairman,
Jersey
for taking
is
up
recognized.
my time and squandering it. That's not how a chairman should act.
Representative Smith, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary, if you need a moment to respond to
Well, I also didn't mention Cuba because I literally hand wrote what I was going to say to you guys, and I told you I was going to submit the written for the record, and I think everybody understands Cuba's a priority for me. Just on the Ukraine front, I'll address it now, if it's okay with your time that I could do so. I think it's well documented that we've been very involved in trying to get the two sides to the table. We've invested a lot of time in it. Unfortunately, so to this point, neither side has been willing to make concessions, particularly on the Russian side, necessary in order to bring peace about. We remain ready to play any role we can in that context of bringing a peace about, because we think the war in Ukraine, devastating war, has no military solution. It can only be solved through a diplomatic route, and it's been unfruitful. I would characterize it as the ongoing challenges. That said, let's be clear, we are not, to be fair and to be frank, we are not impartial mediators in that war. Okay, we don't provide weapons to Russia. We only provide weapons to Ukraine. We don't impose sanctions on Ukraine. We only impose sanctions on Russia. So we have clearly taken a side. We continue to sell weapons to Ukraine, by the way, through the Pearl program, unimpeded by what's happened in the Middle East or anywhere else. And look, we'd love to see that come to a negotiated settlement. As of right now, the prospects don't look great that either side is prepared to make the concessions necessary in order to reach an agreement. But we stand ready, and we've engaged and invested a tremendous amount of high-level time on that conflict over the last year. I think it's a source of frustration for the world. Hopefully this year will bring better news. I don't have any news for you on that front today, but we are ready. As I've expressed to both sides repeatedly, we're ready to step in and play whatever positive role we can to bring that devastating and escalating war to an end.
Secretary, thank you very much. And just let me say, Claire and Sebastian and I and all of us are deeply grateful to you and the President for everything you tried to do to get Jimmy Lai out. Obviously, it's an ongoing concern, and I know you will continue to push for that. But I know you did everything. The ball was in Xi Jinping's court, and he unfortunately erred on the side of continued incarceration of that great human rights defender. But thank you for that. Let me say on the Iran deal, I remember sitting right here and on the floor of the House talking about how egregiously flawed the deal was 10 years ago when the Ayatollah was able to get the language dealing with ballistic missiles out of it because he said it would be stupid, his words. and then they built ballistic missiles like never before.
We'll do it tonight.
Them never having
Just forget the
Iran
people.
never having a nuclear weapon. Let's not forget that the agreement was in effect until October of this past year. Other nations were still a part of it, and yet they were building a capacity to create nuclear weapons and to use them. And the MAD theory does not apply to them, as we all know. Unlike Russia, Soviet Union in the past, even China, they don't want to be destroyed. With the Iranians, there's a sense of martyrdom that I think is perverse, and so they are not guided by a mutual assured destruction theory that holds both sides in check. Let me just say too on the Nigeria, thank you for what you've done there with not just CPC, but the most recent taking out of some of the worst terrorists who are slaughtering Christians, and the numbers continue, but I know you're engaging very, very aggressively there. On the DRC-Rwanda conflict, thank you for sanctioning some of the top people who are committing atrocities, and that just happened a couple of days ago, yesterday, for sure. That shows that commitment there. And on even the Armenian Azerbaijan, I've been working on Nagorno-Karabakh, Azerbaijan and Armenia for 30 years. They often called Nagorno-Karabakh the frozen conflict because nothing would ever happen. You guys stepped in, you stepped in, and the president stepped in and got a peace treaty. I mean, I've met with Aliyev in Baku on 2 occasions. He was totally unwilling to admit to the human rights abuses that he was engaging in, especially as it relates to Nagorno-Karabakh and the Armenians. You've come up with a solution. Thank you for that. And anything you want to speak to on the DRC or Rwanda or any of these issues, appreciate everything you're doing for this country. There's a full plate of horrible things happening, and we're so grateful you're at the helm. Please.
Oh, well, I just on DRC Rwanda, I would say, because just to elaborate on that a little further, as you know, we had an agreement signed and the compliance was not good in that regard. But to be fair, and I know that some other people disagree with this assessment, but we believe it's pretty accurate on the Rwandan side. And so we initiated some sanctions, targeted sanctions on Rwanda. They've come to the table. They've made some commitments. They are complying with the commitments, maybe not at the rate or speed that we'd like them to, but there's been some compliance on pulling back of troops. What we'll watch very closely, of course, is we don't want to see Rwandan troops change uniform into M23 uniforms and claim that they've pulled out. We got to watch that very carefully. And we also have to deal with the M23 issue there. But those are both DRC, Rwanda, and Sudan are 2 areas we remain very engaged in trying to find a solution to.
Representative's time has expired. Representative Castro, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Secretary, for coming in today and for your testimony. I want to start with Iran. I'm hopeful that the President and the administration are able to reach an agreement that ends the war and also reopens the Strait of Hormuz. If there's a deal subject to congressional review under INARA, I'll approach it with a fair mind, and I hope that all of us will as well. I just ask that you keep the committee briefed on the details of that agreement, and I believe that it's in America's interest that this war end. And I sincerely mean that. We are at war alongside Israel against Iran. Iran has struck Israeli nuclear facilities at Dimona, and American service members are deployed throughout the region, as you know. Congress needs to understand the full risks of the conflict, including the nuclear risks. On May 4th, I wrote to you with 29 colleagues asking for details about these risks and Israeli nuclear weapons. On June 1st, your Bureau of Legislative Affairs responded and said, quote, "We refer you to the government of Israel for your questions about Israel's capabilities." I have to say, Mr. Secretary, that's a very bizarre response. 30 of us wrote to you and to the State Department asking our government for an answer, an assessment about a foreign nation's nuclear capabilities. In your opening statement, you referred to India and Pakistan as nuclear nations. We've also spoken in different sessions, both in closed and open sessions, you know, as a U.S. Senator, former U.S. Senator, about the nuclear capabilities of other nations, Iran, China, Russia, France, the UK, both adversaries and allies. And so I wanted to ask you the question today, will you tell us, the Congress and the American people, whether Israel in fact possesses nuclear weapons?
You know that's a question that they've never acknowledged to have a nuclear program. People can have, as you know, an open source and other reporting suspicions about what they possess. If we're speaking frankly, I think most of the world assesses that they do, but they've never acknowledged that publicly, and as a feature of our foreign policy for a variety of reasons, we don't discuss it in that way either.
Well, I guess a few things. This is the first time, especially for an extended period, that we are at war with an ally, Israel, against Iran. And we have service members deployed. And we don't, if they in fact possess nuclear weapons, and you're right, in open source reporting that has come across, we don't know what their red lines are for using those nuclear weapons. And so I guess I'm shocked that our government wouldn't make an effort to know, to understand, and then to give our oversight body the information that we need to make decisions about the war as well.
That's a fair observation, and I would answer that if perhaps you make that request and you're open to it being answered in a different setting other than a public
Classified
letter.
setting? A classified setting?
Yes, both classified and sensitive. And if we could, I think you would get a better response to your question if the context in which it was answered were framed differently than a public letter for a variety of reasons. If we're being mature and grown up here, I mean, foreign policy, and I know that you are, and from the tone of your question, it's clear that it's a serious question. These things require delicate balancing acts between different equities, but I think you can get probably a more fulsome answer if we were to be able to respond to that inquiry in a different context, if that makes sense.
Mr. Secretary, I'll certainly take you up on that, and I appreciate your answer. Thank you for that. I have another question on Lebanon. The president and you are working to end this war with Iran, and according to reporting at least, one of the main sticking points is Israel's continuing military campaign in Lebanon against Hezbollah, which the president has called on Israel to stop. The president confirmed last night, in fact, that he in fact told Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu to stop the war in Lebanon. My worry is that Israel's insistence on continuing this war against Hezbollah will jeopardize the president's efforts and the American government's efforts to reach an agreement with Iran. And so my question is, do you agree that Israel should stop its military campaign in Lebanon and support the president's negotiations for a peace agreement with Iran?
I'd love to answer that question. It's going to take more than the 42 seconds, and I know I've seen already that people get pretty pissed off here when their time gets eaten up. But if I can answer that question, maybe the next person will let me continue, because that's a really important question. So let me just start by saying this. Let me walk you through this. We had an agreement. Hezbollah reached out 2 weeks ago and basically said, about 10 days ago, and basically said, we will not launch missiles into Israeli territory if they stop attacking into Beirut. That was the agreement, I think 5 p.m. 2 Saturdays ago. At 6 p.m., they launched missiles. And then they came back and said, well, we made a mistake. We thought it started tomorrow, not Saturday. Then they went again and violated it again on Sunday.
But also Israel has been bombing and launching throughout. Is that correct?
Well, there's two separate things. Actually, Israel has not conducted massive operations in Beirut for some time. What you see them operating is in the south. And what they are what we've always said, and it's part of the joint statement, we've always said is Israel has a right to act in its defense. So as an example...
Well, but so then why did the president have to tell Israel to stop
Time has
anything?
expired. Representative Wilson's reference.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Indeed, Mr. Secretary, I want to thank you and recognize that we appreciate the U.S.-Israel alliance, and we appreciate very much the response that's being done against 1,100 missile attacks that have come out of Lebanon, as you've just identified correctly, and they need to know that, and how they don't know that, I don't know. But any attacks that are done by Israel are in response, not initiated. With that in mind, you are serving at a historic time with successive dictators on the run. Dictator Assad of Syria has fled to Moscow. Dictator Maduro of Venezuela is incarcerated in Manhattan. Dictator Khomeini of Iran has been eliminated, joining the 40,000 Iranians he murdered this year. As chairman myself of the Helsinki Commission for Security and Cooperation in Europe, you have achieved unprecedented unity in Latin America, supporting the liberation of Venezuela and soon Cuba. You have achieved historic unity across the Middle East of all countries, supporting American efforts, except for the Republic of Georgia, to oppose Iran and its nuclear capabilities. And in Europe, NATO and the EU are united as never before, promoting defense increases for peace through strength to indeed promote Ukraine victory over war criminal Putin. With that in mind, another region is the South Caucasus, which is critical of the opportunity for the Trump route that you've achieved with Prime Minister Pashinyan of Armenia and President Aliyev of Azerbaijan. What a great achievement that is. With that in mind, though, the pro-Iranian regime and the Chinese Communist Party supported Georgian Dream government, which is illegitimate, threatens American access. There was a rigged election in Georgia. With that in mind, they're facilitating the Islamic Revolutionary Guard and evading sanctions to Tehran. What do you believe should be done to address the rapidly expanding radicalization promoted by the Georgian Dream government in the Republic of Georgia?
Let me, if I may, I want to answer the Georgia question.
You do
Can I
all the
steal
above.
30 seconds of your time to finish the answer to
all the
Representative
above.
Castro? So on Georgia, you're right. Everything you just outlined is our pre-existing concern. Since that time, they have made some steps indicating to us that they want to improve their relations with the United States. We've outlined to them what that would take and what that would require. We've received some positive responses. And so our hope is that we can see a change of trajectory in the case of Georgia from where it is today. We obviously understand all the things you've just laid out as being pre-existing problems for us. They've asked us, what will it take to have a better relationship with the United States? We've responded, and hopefully we can build on that basis and perhaps change the trajectory, not just of our relationship with Georgia, but of their behavior. Is it okay if I just take 30 seconds of your time? I apologize. So on the strikes that you're referring to, here's what happens in the South. I'm just going to speak colloquially as best I can. The Israelis see Hezbollah moving around, maybe even launching a missile from the south, and they action it in defense. They go after it in the southern portion. And that's what we're seeing in many cases is these defensive strikes. What they're increasingly doing is taking more territory in the south to deny them launching space. Because understand, these rockets are being launched into northern villages and cities in Israel, and populations can't even return to their homes as a result of it. In the case of what happened the other day, the following was happening. We had indications, multiple indications, that Israel may be considering conducting anti-Hezbollah strikes inside of Beirut. And at that moment, we had reach out from the Lebanese authorities saying that Hezbollah had contacted them and said if Israel doesn't strike Beirut, that they would stop launching missiles into Israeli territory. That's the message we got, and that's what the president pursued and said, okay, I had this outreach. If you won't do these strikes in Beirut, they'll stop launching against you in northern Israel. Unfortunately, within an hour or two of that conversation, they launched 2 waves of rockets from Hezbollah against Israel in Israeli territory. So it's an ongoing challenge. I think one of the reasons why we're engaged in these talks between Lebanon and Israel is understanding that Hezbollah is not just an enemy of Israel. Hezbollah is an enemy of Lebanon. They are an enemy of the Lebanese government. They have called for the overthrow of the Lebanese government. When Lebanon expelled the Iranian ambassador, he refused to leave. He said, I'm not leaving. You can't expel me. Hezbollah is protecting me. So Hezbollah is not just a challenge to Israel. It's a challenge to Lebanon, to the Lebanese state, and the Lebanese people. And we are hopeful that we can create a paradigm in which Lebanon's government and Israel can work together to disarm Hezbollah and allow the people of Lebanon to reclaim its country. But it's complex. This has been going on since OJ had isotoners and those commercials. So.
And Mr. Secretary, you're correct. I was with President Aoun in Beirut last year, and that what you're doing should address it. I do want to point out, give Syria a chance, and that's been your success, Tom Barrack, the president, by giving Syria a chance. We need to delist Syria from the state sponsor of terrorism, and I urge that to be done.
Thank you for being so generous for Representative Castro's question. Representative Titus is recognized.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. I just want to talk about some of the conflicting comments that we've been hearing about the status of Iran's military. The president just made some comments on Fox News where he said Iran's military, we sort of left it alone because we think that their military is somewhat moderate. We've taken different forms of leadership out, but we've actually left their military alone. People would be surprised to hear that. Well, I'm very surprised to hear it because we've had Secretary Hegseth say repeatedly that Epic Fury decimated Iran's military and rendered it combat ineffective for years to come. You've said the Iranian Navy's at the bottom of the sea and they have no Air Force either. Well, which is it? You're the Secretary of State and the National Security Advisor. You can't tell us if the military's decimated or not. Is it at the bottom of the sea? Was it left alone? This is a major point I think Congress needs clarity on.
Okay, thank you. Fair question. Let me address both of them. The first is on the military. I think there's a difference between the military's hardware and capabilities and the individuals involved in the military. As you know, the Iranians suffered tremendous losses in personnel, and that includes top leadership of the IRGC and other elements of their government. What the president is alluding to is that there are certain individuals in the Iranian regime who have indicated both directly and indirectly a willingness to approach the future perhaps a little different. Not ideal. I'm not telling you, look, everybody talks about moderates in Iran. There are no moderates. There are radicals and super radicals, okay? That's been our view of it. But there are some of them that believe that they actually need to do a deal because their economy is in shambles. And so I think what the president is alluding to is that there are some individuals involved in the negotiations and in elements of their government, including some in elements of their military, that are more open to a deal than others. As far as the Navy is concerned, yeah, they have no Navy. What they have remaining is a bunch of small crafts, I would call them Boston whalers with machine guns, and these things are harassing ships. And these are the ones that go after, in some cases, they drop mines off the back of them, or they try to harass shipping with swarms. They are unable to form swarms the way they once did. They are primarily now threatening shipping through the use of one-way attack drones. But their Navy, which you would consider a Navy with naval vessels that can actually conduct naval operations, is non-existent at this point.
So is the war still on, or is the war off?
Well, Epic Fury has concluded. What you're seeing reports of, including last night, is the following. A ship will go through the route, particularly both the northern and southern route of Hormuz. Those ships will come under attack. The U.S. will respond to that attack by shooting down those drones that are trying to sink a commercial civilian vessel illegally and unlawfully. At that point, the Iranians will respond to that by targeting some facility in the region in retribution. On occasion, in order to protect our own forces, we don't just strike the drones, we strike the people who launch those drones. These are completely defensive in nature, but they are happening in response to an Iranian action. If they don't shoot at those ships, we don't shoot. But we have to respond. You have a civilian commercial vessel transiting the straits, and they're being targeted by drones, and these drones are not like highly precise. They could hit any part of that ship, and they could create, including an ecological disaster.
Well, apparently some kind of military exists that's shooting these drones off. And the military obviously isn't decimated.
Well,
they're attack these ships with these drones.
Yeah, they still retain a drone.
When you say what the president was alluding to, the president's not a person who's known for illusions. He just shouts it right out, whatever he's thinking. So I don't think he was alluding to anything, as you suggest.
Well, drones are, as you know, a challenge in multiple battlefields around the world. It's going to be a tremendous challenge for warfighting in the future because they're cheap.
Yeah, I know what drones are.
I know you know what they are, but I'm saying that they're cheap and they're easy.
Yes, I know, and we're using things that are very expensive to shoot them down.
And that needs to change. That said, yes, they still have the capability to, they can't launch as many as they used to, and they can't launch them in the swarms they used to launch them in, but they still retain that capability.
Okay. Well, let me just ask you a quick question about something that Ambassador Barrack said, changing the subject a little bit. He compared Israel to Hezbollah, for one thing. That was a pretty concerning comparison. But also he said Turkey should join the F-35 program. These comments are inconsistent with law and long-standing policy, and I'm just wondering what your position is as Secretary of State. Can Turkey get F-15s and F-35s, or not? We seem to be helping the bad guys and not the good guys.
Well, as I'm sure you're aware, Turkey actually was in the F-35 program. The reason why they can't get them is because they purchased the S-400 system from the Russians.
They still have those, and they're still under mandatory sanctions.
Correct. So as you know, that's governed by statute.
Okay, or not?
Well, right now we don't have that choice because it's governed by statute, both provisions of the NDAA and the statute.
Out there saying that.
Representative's time has expired. Representative Perry is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. I'll give you an opportunity to answer the ranking member, even though he didn't pose it as a question. But I, as an individual, like many on the dais who have served in uniform, thank you for your actions regarding Iran and this administration's action. But if you want to answer it yes or no, you're welcome to. Who started the war between Iran and America 47 years ago?
Yeah, remember, these yes or no things I don't like, but I could just tell you Iran has been at war against the United States since the minute the Islamic regime took over.
Yeah, and I feel the same way. And again, thank you on behalf and to honor the thousands and 10,000s of Americans who have been murdered or maimed by Iran. Thank you for honoring them. Just moving on to questions. Did Pakistan's foreign minister personally deliver a message to you that Iran is prepared to demonstrate a nuclear weapon should the current escalation continue. That's been reported, and I just want to see if I can ferret that out.
I've not seen that reporting, and I'm not aware of any such message.
Okay, and if there were such a message, would that change anything in America's posture, or not only the message, but the action? Would that change anything regarding our goals
Well, I think
regarding Iran?
the hypothetical question is, if Iran threatened that they're going to test a nuclear device if talks fail, I think it would confirm everything we believe about them anyways. And I think the president then would have to pursue or at least have to consider various other options that are available to him in that context. But again, I've not heard that message relayed. I don't know the reporting you're referring to. You're talking about a press report?
Yeah, I am talking about a press report.
I would be surprised if that message had been relayed. I would be aware of it if it was.
I would think so. That's why I'm asking, so that's enough on that. I know that the president, look, he's an America First guy. He's concerned about every single American citizen, regardless of their party affiliation or their ideology and affordability. The president is concerned about those things. And I shudder to think what Iran would do if they could, armed with nuclear capability and ballistic missile capability, coupled with that, seeing what they're doing right now, extorting the world economy without those things.
How is he not
So with that in mind, it's been reported that the UAE is building a pipeline to the Gulf of Oman, which would bypass the Strait of Hormuz, essentially doubling their capacity, which would, of course, lower the price and the risk of global fuel transport or oil transport. Do you understand or do you recognize and know what the timeline is for a proposed timeline for completion of that pipeline is?
Yeah, I'm aware of those efforts. They actually pre-exist the conflict in terms of a desire to do so. These things, I can't tell you specifically. I'm not a pipeline building expert, but I can tell you certainly it's going to take more than a week or a year. I mean, these are complex. I think the broader point, which your question touches on, is I do think you're going to see a reshifting of where the world gets its energy from in the aftermath of this conflict. You're already beginning to see some of it now. I think you're going to see the United States be a bigger energy provider to the Indo-Pacific. We have the capability to do so, but it's going to take some time to build that capability, so I think you're going to see more of that, and I think you're going to see the establishment of more of these alternative routes as a result of this. Remember, only about 20% of global oil goes through the Straits of Hormuz, but it is about 80 to 85% of the oil that goes to the Indo-Pacific. So in those particular countries, I think you're going to most definitely see them buying more from other places, including the United States.
And that's going to lower the cost for everybody, which is great. Secretary, just moving on, you're of Cuban descent, of Colombian descent. Can you describe, and Cuba has been a sore...
Are you really Colombian? I didn't know that.
Yes,
oh, wow.
Indeed. But Cuba has been sowing the seeds of discord in our hemisphere, inviting China, Russia, North Korea, all manner of communist, oligarch, bad actors into the hemisphere. What, if you can describe, generally speaking, what the policy where we're headed with Cuba as the United States of America? Where are we headed, and what do you envision being success, and how do we measure that?
In 56 seconds, I will tell you what we want for the people of Cuba is to be able to live in a normal country.
You're here.
I want them to live in a country that looks like the Dominican Republic, like Jamaica, like the Bahamas, like any of these other places where people can own their own business, people can vote for their own leaders. By the way, that's not my desire. That's the policy of the United States. That's enshrined in statute. Here's the problem, and we're willing to do this through a diplomatic means. The problem we have is that country's not controlled by a government. That country's controlled by a military conglomerate that basically controls 70% of the nation's GDP, and none of the profits of that conglomerate goes into the public treasury. None of that money goes to build bridges and roads or to reinvest into their energy infrastructure. All of it goes to build more hotels for tourists that aren't coming and to line the pockets of the people that are involved. So that has to change. My question, I think we all can envision what we want Cuba to look like, and it doesn't have to happen from overnight, okay? We understand they're not going to go from being what they are now to turning into Belgium or Switzerland in one day to the next. It takes time in these processes. I just don't believe, frankly, at this point, given everything we've seen, that the people in charge of that conglomerate and of that government are capable of making these reforms, at least not yet. Their mindset isn't there. Their incentives aren't there. They have spent, 60-something years waiting us out and holding on, and I think they can still get away with it, and they can't, and they won't be able to.
Time has expired. Representative Liu is recognized.
Thank you, Secretary Rubio, for being here today. You have been at multiple meetings with President Trump. In a moment, I'm going to show you a video of one of these meetings. It is from last December. It's a cabinet meeting. I'm going to ask you to focus on President Trump, and you will see that he is sleeping while you are talking.
Oh, my God.
Please show the video.
products they make and what American farmers grow and produce has a fair shot to be sold around the world. On issue after issue, that's been the case. You talk about foreign aid reforms. This is not our money. This is taxpayer money.
Secretary Rubio, have you been at more than one meeting where President Trump has fallen asleep?
That's false. That's false. I've never seen him fall asleep. On the contrary, the guy doesn't sleep, which is a big problem because he calls me at 2 in the morning, he calls me at 5 in the morning, and you know, I like to sleep a little bit, maybe not 12 hours, but at least 6. So he works. The other day he was at the Oval Office until 12:30 p.m. 12:30 a.m. I don't know what you're talking about.
Secretary Rubio, I'm going to show you in a moment a video that shows you just lied to Congress.
Oh, okay.
So this is a video of a cabinet meeting literally from last month where Donald Trump is sleeping while you are talking. Please show this video.
A coalition of countries that line up behind the peace deal, behind the border peace, and it's still every day is a challenge, but it's been driven personally by the president. It's the reason why we're involved in this whole Ukraine-Russia conflict. That's not our war. It's not the president's war. This war started. It never would have happened if you'd been president. But this war is going on, and the president is trying to end it.
You are literally talking about issues of war and peace, and Donald Trump is sleeping right next to you.
No, he's not.
If Donald Trump cannot stay awake at these important meetings where the cameras are rolling, imagine what he's like when the cameras are not there. So I'm going to ask you, have you been at classified meetings where Donald Trump has fallen asleep or had trouble staying awake?
I've never been at any meeting where, and the things you're showing me now, he was not falling asleep. And I think
so
it's
you're lying again. You're lying consistently to Congress. You're lying to Congress, Secretary Rubio. So I'm going to show you another video in a moment. The president's inability to stay awake on the job has caused other countries to perceive him differently. They mock him. They see he is weak and he is feeble. This is a video of a French news channel talking about Donald Trump falling asleep at a Memorial Day ceremony. Please show this video.
Well, Mark, a video that appears to show Donald Trump falling asleep at a Memorial Day ceremony this Monday has been circulating heavily online. And internet users have a lot to say about it. It's also reignited rumours about the state of the US president's health. Now, in the video, social media users say that Trump is fighting sleep whilst he listens to the speech given by Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, and that his eyes appear to be closed for a large portion of the ceremony. Now, we need to remember here that this is a ceremony to honour and remember those US military personnel who have died while serving in the armed forces. And the idea that Trump was asleep at a somber ceremony like this, well, that has triggered outrage online.
Donald Trump's inability to stay awake on the job shows that there's something very wrong with his health or cognitive abilities. And in fact, on a number of occasions, Donald Trump will contradict himself in literally the same meeting or interview. In this video I'm about to show, it shows that Donald Trump says the Iranian military is both destroyed and not destroyed at the same time, something that Dina Titus alluded to. Please show this video.
Of leadership, that we've actually left the military alone. People would be surprised to hear that. Because mistakes have been made in wars where you wipe out everybody and then you have a country that's, for 40 years can never rebuild. You look at what happened with Iraq. Iran is in a very bad position. They have no military. All they have is good talk, and they have a fake press.
So, Secretary Rubio, instead of holding North Korean-style cabinet meetings where everyone goes around the room kissing Donald Trump's ass, I'm going to ask you to come clean with the American people and the White House as well. There's something wrong with Donald Trump's health or cognitive abilities. There's a reason he keeps going to the hospital and they keep giving him cognitive tests. We have not seen the president in 8 days. The American people deserve the truth. I yield back.
I don't even know how to respond to that other than to tell you that it's absurd and ridiculous. And I can't believe we're in a Foreign Affairs Committee meeting in front of the House at an important time in American foreign policy.
Just keep lying, Secretary Rubio. Just keep lying.
Supposedly someone who thinks he's a medical expert when he's not. The truth of the matter is we had a cognitively impaired president in office a few years ago. That's a cognitively impaired president. But I don't like to talk about that because it weakens America. This president we have, this is a guy that literally doesn't sleep. He works day and night, long hours, every single day. I don't know if you haven't seen him in 8 days. I saw him yesterday. I didn't see him yesterday because I was in Congress the day before. I talked to him at all hours of the day and night. He works inhumane hours. Okay, I've been on foreign trips with the president that he doesn't sleep in the whole flight. And everyone else is sleeping on the plane, and he's, wandering the hallways looking for someone to wake up and talk to that people are. So I don't know what you're referring to, but he has an incredible amount of energy. I'm just telling you, you may not like his policies. You may not like his policies, you may not like the decisions he's made, but I assure you, this is not a president that sleeps or is cognitively impaired in any way, shape, or form, and in fact is incredibly active, much more so in many cases than much younger people that are around him. Those are facts. I see it every day. You're not going to agree because you have another narrative that you want to push, but those are the facts.
I just showed you 3 videos of him sleeping.
Representative Issa is recognized.
Thanks for waking me up, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, if you'd gone to sleep during those videos, I would not have blamed you. I, too, have received those calls at all hours of the day and night. I'm, like you, aware that the president works harder than any other person here in Washington. But moving along, a number of things have been said that I find just incredible. First of all, the whole question on whether or not we support Lebanon and whether or not we support Israel. Is there any real contradiction between what Israel is trying to accomplish and what your aid to the Lebanese armed forces over decades is trying to accomplish?
Contradiction?
Is there any light between those two efforts?
They're aligned. What we would like to see is a Lebanese armed forces with the strength and the capability to disarm Hezbollah and reclaim the entirety of the country on behalf. The country should only have one armed forces. It shouldn't have an armed political party, which is what Hezbollah is, and then the LAF, the Lebanese Armed Forces. So and the Lebanese want that too. And that's what we work very closely with them on, and that's what our engagement with the Lebanese is about.
And, Mr. Secretary, just for the record, in one of the last times I was in Israel, I asked Prime Minister Netanyahu if we should cut off aid, as some have said, to Lebanon. He said, to Lebanese armed forces, he said, no, give them more. Give them what they need to take back their country. So I do believe that we couldn't be more aligned with the efforts of Israel and the present government of Lebanon. Moving along, you did a great job of going around the world and outlining the mess that was left to you as you pick each of them up. One that you didn't touch on that I'm concerned about is actually a democratic one, which is the democracy of South Korea has taken a strong bent to the left, opening up more avenues toward China and, in fact, beginning to oppress many of our companies, including Meta, Coupon, and others. Can you tell us what can be done and what this committee should do with countries who, through democratic means, are beginning to become anti-U.S.?
Right. So there are a couple points I would make. The first is that, and this is the unique aspect of dealing with democracies, and we see it in our hemisphere quite often. Sometimes in a democratic country, they will elect leaders that are friendlier to U.S. national interests, such as what we have now in Japan. And sometimes they will elect leaders that have a different perspective. We respect the sovereign choice of the people of that country. That's a legitimate election. That's who they chose. In those instances in which a democracy and their elected leaders are taking positions that run contrary to the national interests of the United States, it doesn't mean we want to overthrow the government or get rid of the government because it's a democratic government. It simply means we have to engage them in the fact that they are doing things that are irritants to our national interests. You point to some of our companies. Our companies aren't just facing challenges and, I would say targeting in South Korea. They're facing it throughout Europe. And the European Union, as an example, is targeting our technology companies and conducting what we believe is unfair. So I think this becomes a feature of our engagement with South Korea, even as we have things that we're strategically aligned on. These are areas we've expressed and I think have, frankly, impacted our ability to conclude a trade agreement with them because of some of their behavior towards American companies.
Iran obviously was going to dominate a part of today, and I'd like to close my questioning with a question for you. In 1979, if my math is correct, you were 8 years old when they took our embassy and then lied about it, claimed it was students doing it. That's 47 years ago, as has been said many times. Is it fair to say that President Trump, no matter what the people on the other side of the aisle want to say, is not in the 60th or 70th day of action, but in fact in the 47th year of an ongoing war with Iran that has spread to Yemen, to Lebanon, and even to South and Central America?
I think I would start, well, absolutely, first of all, with Hezbollah. Hezbollah is an agent of the Iranians, and they've carried out terrorist operations around the world, including the recent anniversary of what they did in Argentina, the Jewish Center. But let's not forget those IEDs that were used to maim and kill our troops in Iraq were all innovated by Soleimani and the IRGC, which strongly supported that. Let's not forget that we have these Iranian proxy militias operating inside of Iraq that as recently as 2 months ago kidnapped an American journalist. And let's not forget that there are people that are both charged and convicted in the United States for participating in Iranian assassination plots against the president and against other former and current government leaders. So we've been facing this from Iran for 47 years in a variety of ways, some more open than others.
Thank you. And Mr. Chairman, I ask unanimous consent that the Wall Street Journal article entitled "South Korea Takes a Hard Left Turn Against America" be placed in the record.
So ordered.
Thank you. I yield.
Without objection. Representative Jacobs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.